So Jedi Survivor officially dropped a few days ago, and I've got to say I've been playing it non-stop ever since. I've enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. So it is finally time for tips and tricks I wish I knew earlier. As always, we've made sure there are some tips in here for everybody, whether you've just started out your playthrough or you've been playing for many hours now. As was the case with the predecessor, combat is obviously a very important aspect of the game, and I will admit I abused the hell out of the dual wield stance pretty much my entire way through the main story at least. The reason for this is that the dual wield stance can do a few things that no other stance can. The best feature about the dual wield stance is its attack animation cancel, meaning you can be spamming away your attacks, and at any point if you press the L1 button you'll instantly go into the guard pose, being able to block attacks. This gives it a huge advantage over the other stances where you actually have to finish the attack animation before you can start guarding. Though the basic single stance does come close, as it's very quick to go into the animation, but it's not instant as is the dual wield one. As for dodging, you can't actually attack animation cancel into a dodge directly. However, with a little bit of practice, you can actually attack animation cancel into a block and then quickly press the dodge button, and it will be so instant it's pretty much like dodging immediately out of an attack. If you do decide to use the dual wielded stance, I would also recommend unlocking the Twin Vipers ability as soon as you possibly can on the dual wield, as this will allow you to consecutively throw one of your lightsabers after the other one, making for much better combat. Combine this with the Dexterity perk that increases throw damage, and you've got yourselves an absolute beast build from very early on in the game. As the dual wield stance is unlocked extremely close to the beginning, and the Dexterity perk can be obtained from the Chamber of Reason, which is the Jedi chamber in the Basalt Forest. If you do need help with the exact location of how to get to and the walkthroughs of any of the Jedi chambers, we have a video explaining all of that already on the channel, which will be in the description down below if you do want to check that out. Now this is going to sound a little bit strange after talking up the dual wielding stance so much already. It's not actually my favorite stance in the game anymore. Later on in the story, you automatically unlock the blaster stance, is where you have the gun in one hand and the lightsaber in the other. When I first unlocked this, I was so in love with the dual wielding stance already, I didn't really give it a fair shot. However, in the post-game, I started messing around with it, and I've got to say it is now my favorite stance in the entire game. I'm not going to lie, 90% of the reason for that is because of the point blank ability. You can unlock this in the Blaster Stance skill tree, and what it does is allows you to shoot just before the enemy hits you and you can parry them. That's right, this turns the game pretty much into Bloodborne, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Other than that, you have the quick draw ability in the skill tree as well, which is really cool, which allows you to do the classical Wild West quick draw when you can lock onto various targets at once and then you shoot all of them at the same time. Another thing that hugely increases the potential of the Blaster Stance is you can actually buy specific upgrades for the charge shot. Fairly early on in the story, once you go through the devastated settlement for the first time, you unlock the bounty hunts. Once you pass that point in the story, the bounty hunter NPC will come back to the saloon. And here you can buy charge shot upgrades for the blaster. The three here at the top, as you can see, one simply makes it so the blast shot does more radius, damaging enemies near the actual target. The other one makes it so the bullets actually ricochet off of things, which is pretty cool. But then by far the best one is the stun shot, the third one here. This makes it so that when you shoot your charge shot on the blaster, it actually creates a stun radius on the ground affecting multiple enemies. Once you have purchased it, all you need to do is go into any of the meditation points, and in the stance menu, you can press the square button over the blaster stance, and here you can choose which charge shot you want to choose from. And the final thing that is going to be the cherry on top of the blaster stance is the Ambidexterity perk. This will increase your damage after shooting, which, as you've guessed, you're probably going to be doing quite a bit with the blaster stance. And you can obtain the Ambidexterity perk from the Devastated Settlement Jedi Chamber. Very quickly, from the top of the Devastated Settlement meditation point here, you want to fly back down to the final one of the lasers here in front of you. Aim this laser a bit further left to this little alcove cave you can see in the far end of the mountain. Then fly all the way down, land in that alcove. Here you're going to use BD1's Cobalt Grinder ability, which you unlock during this same area. With this, you're going to connect the purple laser beam to the door inside the cave, and this will allow you in getting the Ambidexterity perk. The next topic is going to be the skill points. The first important thing to note is that there is no level cap, meaning you can get potentially infinite skill points unlocking all of the skill trees if you really want to. It's also important to note that you can actually reset all of your skill points and get them back if you want to spend them somewhere else by simply holding down the triangle button here in your skill tree menu. The first time you reset your skill points, it's going to be completely free. However, do note that after the first respec, from there on, each time you reset your skill points will cost you 1 skill point. so you definitely don't want to abuse this too much. A good tip I would say is that early game, spend your skill points in the survival and the force skill tree, specifically to get extra health and the Jedi concentration tree, just because these are never going to be wasted skill points. You're going to need more health and more force meters no matter which playstyle or which stance you decide to use later on in the game. So you can never really go wrong spending your skill points in the survival or the Jedi concentration skill trees to begin with. And then a little bit later on in the game, once you've unlocked a few stances and you really kind of got the feel of what playstyle you want to go for, then I would start spending the skill points inside each individual skill tree. At the end of the day, you can farm as many skill points as you want, so don't worry too much about it, as you can simply get more if you need them. Another quick tip, while you are deciding which skill trees you want to upgrade, if you go further enough up in the trees, it will get to a point where you can't see the description. It will simply say pre-requirement not met. But you can actually see what these abilities do by pressing the square button on them. That way it will help you decide whether you actually want to progress towards that ability or not, instead of having to get right next to it to be able to see what it actually does. Now the only perks I would feel comfortable actually recommending, as most of them are pretty mid, is the Wisdom perk, which can be bought from the vendor in the second floor of the saloon after you do the first Jedi chamber during chapter 2 of the main story. The Wisdom perk just simply gives you extra experience points every time you kill an enemy. So I'd recommend having this on pretty much at all times just to get extra experience so you can get more skill points throughout the game. Other than that, the only perks I would really even bother mentioning are the Dexterity and the Ambidexterity ones that we mentioned at the start of this video for the dual wield stance and the blaster stance. Let's move on and talk a little bit about exploration, as it's another massive part of this game. The exploration on this game is actually very well done. You can sort of detour from the main pathway and find a bunch of cool hidden paths and little puzzles, and that's actually a very rewarding feeling. Unfortunately, the rewards at the end of these so-called hidden pathways aren't really always that great, but just the satisfaction of finding them is pretty cool. This game does have post-game, meaning once you finish the story, you can continue exploring, go back to everything you missed, and just find all the collectibles or anything else you want to do. Now, as this game is a bit of a Metroidvania in the sense that you do need a lot of the exploration abilities you unlock by advancing in the story, simply to access a lot of the areas, a lot of the optional hidden paths and stuff. I don't feel very comfortable saying this, but I will say I would recommend advancing quite a bit in the story before really worrying too much about exploration, which kind of sucks because I know it's very enjoyable to sort of want to check out every sort of pathway, which by all means, if you're enjoying doing that, continue doing that. I'm not going to tell you how to play the game, but unfortunately, you are going to be met with a lot of dead ends and places you can't really access until you have a lot of these abilities. So maybe advance until at least you unlock the air dash, I would say, before worrying too much about exploration. Now, the one upgrade that goes against that, and I would say definitely try to get as soon as possible, are all the stim canisters. The stim canisters allow you to have more heals, and there are a total of 10 stim canisters throughout the game, meaning plus the 2 you already have to start with, you can actually heal yourself 12 times once you've collected all of them. A bit of movement advice: once you've advanced the story enough to unlock the air dash, you'll never want to be running again. I'm going to show you here on screen a bit of a video comparison. On the right hand side, we are simply sprinting in the exact same route. And then on the left hand side, we're going to be sprinting and then doing an individual jump and then dash, individual jump, then dash continuously. And you can see it is actually quite a bit faster to continuously do this instead of just sprinting everywhere. You can also go faster by getting on the mounts. And a cool little trick regarding the mounts is you can actually skip the annoying animation of when you climb on them by simply jumping. If you sort of land on the mounts, you completely skip out any animation of actually having to mount it. In my opinion, the coolest cosmetic in this game are definitely the Jedi robes, which I'm sure most of you are going to be wanting to wear through your playthrough. And they're actually very easy to obtain. All you need to do is go to the Crypt of Ulma meditation point just past the desert area. Then take a right into this circular building with the stairs, and once you go up the stairs, instead of going through the doorway, you want to wall run round the circular room into this little alcove, and in this chest you'll be able to find the Jedi robes. Throughout the game, you often come across these scavenger droids, which are the red little robots. You want to make sure you're taking these out as they drop treasures that you can spend at the merchants. The best way to take these out is definitely from a distance, as they will try to run away. What you can do is simply throw your lightsaber at them, instantly killing them so they don't get a chance to run. But I think that's all we have time for today. If you do have any extra tips, do leave them in the comments down below. I hope you did find this video helpful. If you did, don't forget that thumbs up button, subscribe for more content coming very soon, and we'll see you next time.